Former England and Manchester United centre-back Rio Ferdinand 2020 highlighted how Harry Maguire struggles physically at times when defending. Additionally, Ferdinand analyses how in 1v1 scenarios, Maguire tends to physically struggle and get beaten. Similarly, ex-pro footballers Redknapp and Neville 2020 conveyed how the Manchester United captain has made lots of individual errors in regard to his defensive acumen at the beginning of the 2020-21 Premier League season. Manchester United had conceded the same amount of goals, 14, as bottom of the table Sheffield United and sat in 14th place in the Premier League 2020. In addition to this, Manchester United were averaging 1.7 goals conceded per match, in comparison to the average of only 0.95 goals conceded per match in the 2019-20 season, Premier League 2020. Harry Maguire had played in every league game since he joined Man United, Premier League 2020, so his dip in form directly correlated with the team's poor performance and league placement. The present assignment will analyse Harry Maguire's individual Manchester United League defensive performances at the start of the season and will attempt to resolve the main defensive problem areas for the England international. Football is a sport consisting of high-dimensional behavioural outputs that illustrate the complex, evolving configurations and dynamics typical of team games, Dutt Mazumder 2011. These dynamic systems interact with one another, making each system as important as the next. With this in mind, Glazer 2010 advises that the adoption of dynamical systems theory as the basis of performance analysis is a logical progression given that it had previously been suggested to be a viable theoretical framework for notational analysis. Now to apply these dynamical systems to the current study. So the target player is Harry Maguire. The main tactical concept is individual defensive errors as perturbations leading to chances to score being presented for the opposition as critical incidents. Chavisa 2012 backs that up also, and the main theoretical concept linking to the tactical concept is if there is a failure to smooth out these perturbations, for example loss of possession or lost aerial duels, it results in system instability. As a result, the opposition has a greater chance of scoring or creating a high-quality chance, as Harry Maguire will have caused them to be in an unsteady state, rather than a steady state defensively. Less successful teams lose possession and more commonly make defensive mistakes in the middle and defensive thirds of the football pitch. These perturbations allow attacking chances to be created by the opposing team, and that's backed up by Fernandez Navarro 2016. So moving on to the measures, Hughes and Bartlett 2002 encouraged the use of KPIs when performing notation analysis so that the variables measured are both valid and objective. Due to the process of selecting KPIs being a pivotal moment in the analysis of performance, Trade 2008, time was taken to ensure that the appropriate KPIs were selected and suitably clearly defined, as they must be, Hughes 2012. The chosen KPIs were selected as the literature widely agreed upon these being key technical aspects to succeed at central defending, the position which Harry Maguire plays, Houston 2012, Weimar 2003, Taylor et al. 2005, Zhu et al. 2018, Lagerbella-Strauss 2010. The definitions for the KPIs were amassed from official football institutes in an effort to ensure that they were valid and objective as was possible. Hughes and Probert 2006 display the importance of clear operating definitions. Previous research combined to create this coding template to ensure its validity and function appropriate to the collection of the data, most notably Hughes 2015 and his research around sequential systems. From this, as a decision was made to split the football pitch into its main three thirds. Also, the type of action made by said player and outcome of the aforementioned action. Each time a perturbation is perceived, the video will be stopped, replayed, and compared against the operational definitions in the table to ensure the accuracy of each observed action. Hughes 2015, O'Donoghue 2009. Moving on to reliability, as stated and discussed in numerous pieces of literature surrounding notational analysis, the findings of each piece of research can be utilized by coaches to inform their practice and preparation. As a result, the reliability of each study should remain a priority for the researcher. Hughes 2015, O'Donoghue 2009. In relation to this, Cohen 1960 and the kappa coefficient was utilized for this research in an attempt to maximize reliability. All observations were carried out twice, conforming to the 24-hour gap between observation periods due to the lack of a second researcher. Robinson 2017 states that the kappa coefficient is a reliable system to use when carrying out notational analysis. Moving into the interpretation of the findings. Interestingly, when playing against Spurs this season, Maguire managed 0 clearances and 0 offsides forced. From this it can be presumed that when facing better opposition, Spurs were 10 places off at the time, that Maguire potentially struggles to adapt and doesn't find himself in good defensive positions in which he can then clear the ball or play the opposition offside. Comparatively, Toby Alderweireld, who also played this match but for Spurs, is currently averaging 6 clearances per game in the Premier League, a much better rate, Premier League 2020. Additionally, another assumption which can be drawn from the data is that the United captain is inconsistent in his tackling, boasting a 50% tackle success ratio. Fernandez et al. 2019, in their study around defending in football encompassing dynamic systems, also argued in favour of tackling being a key indicator to successful defending, meaning this could be a problem area for the United captain. Obviously, having this ratio gives attackers a 1 in 2 chance at beating Maguire in a 1v1 duel. This backs Ferdinand 2020 in that Maguire can struggle in these types of scenarios. In spite of this, Maguire achieved a 100% success rate in aerial duels. This is noteworthy due to the fact that Jose Mourinho is infamous for playing a rougher style of football that can be very direct. However, Maguire dealt with this side of the game admirably against 6'2" striker Harry Kane. This somewhat arguably discredits the notion that Maguire can struggle physically, which Ferdinand 2020 alluded to. Moving into Game 2. In comparison to Game 1, some interesting analysis can be produced around the clearance and offsides force KPIs. Everton, similarly to Spurs, were a lot higher positioned in the table than United, 7 places above. Yet in this game, Maguire managed 5 clearances and 2 offsides force as opposed to 0 for both KPIs like in Game 1. This is evidence that Maguire has the ability to pick up good defensive positions, but also highlights his inconsistency in this regard due to the clear difference over the two compared games. In terms of Maguire's passing accuracy, yet again he shows that he's capable of keeping possession the majority of the time. 88% as an average is only 5% less than that of the highly acclaimed Thiago Silva's success rate of 93%, Premier League 2020. In conjunction with this, some research from 2014 evidences how the loss of possession can lead to critical chances being presented to the opposition, making keeping possession an important defensive quality. Additionally, Maguire racked up 14 interceptions this match. This is noteworthy, as Premier League leaders Chelsea centre-back Kurt Zouma has not managed that even all season, let alone in one game, and that's from Premier League 2020. Overall, this was a good game for Maguire. It shows that there is talent, however, it just needs to be seen on a consistent basis. Moving into Game 3. Again, Maguire failed to record a single offside forced or clearance. This was alarming due to the fact that Arsenal were 15th in the Premier League, even lower than United. This could perhaps point more towards Maguire's own defensive inconsistencies rather than level of opposition at this point. As mentioned previously, not managing to get any clearances and a 60% tackle success rate can point towards a lack of defensively sound positioning, combined with an inability to defend 1v1s on a consistent basis. The findings from this game further validate Neville and Redknapp's point of view in that Maguire tends to make individual errors. Remember, in terms of the dynamical systems theory, these individual errors are perturbations that can lead to critical incidences for the opposition to utilise and benefit from. In contrast, however, by Game 3 a pattern had emerged in that Maguire consistently performed well in the interceptions category. This is evidence to suggest that Maguire can anticipate opposition passes and plays and deny any perturbations, keeping the defence in a steady state in this regard. Gregain 1997 details how opposition players can delay or advance attacking play. If the opposition feels that Maguire is weak 1 versus 1, they may choose to advance upon him rather than delay. This advancing causes imbalance in the defence and most often leads to critical incidences for the opposition due to the failure of Maguire's tackling being a pivotal perturbation. Okay, moving into the final game, Maguire had a successful tackle rate of just 33%, once again highlighting his 1v1 weakness as Ferdinand 2020 points out, and Fernandez et al. 2019, and also Gregain 1997 all further emphasise the importance of tackling and 1v1 defending. When analysing Game 4, the results are very similar to the other games, and obvious trends and patterns are emerging around most of the data. For example, Maguire's continually low tackle success rate, relatively continuous successful aerial duel rate, inconsistent rates of clearances, and impressive passive data persistently. Moving into the positional data. In conjunction with the trends, it was also necessary to highlight the importance of the spread of actions in regard to where they took place on the pitch. Redwood Brown 2019 emphasised the importance of tracking the whereabouts of positions of defensive actions when performing notational analysis on football due to the dynamic nature of the sport. In addition, they discuss how the defensive third is the area where possession is conceded the most through passes, aligning with Lagos 2009, who also found these outcomes. This is noteworthy as Maguire most likely based in the defensive third, seeing as he plays solely as a centre-back. Abbott 2018 used GPS data from elite level footballers and also conveyed how central defenders spend the majority of time in competition in the defensive third. In the present study, 61% of Maguire's total actions took place in the defensive third, backing up the referenced research. Also, 33% of Maguire's total actions took place in the central third of the pitch. It is important to refer to the central third of the pitch, as if possession is conceded higher up the pitch, acting as a perturbation, Maguire may struggle to stop the critical incident from turning into a goal, as he is caught higher up the pitch, further from his goal than he would usually be. Maguire totalled a 92% success rate for both defensive and central third defensive actions. Into the actions data now. Passing made up for 74% of the total actions recorded. However, as Maguire's passing accuracy was recorded at being 94%, this was not seen as an issue that needed to be addressed, rather a positive of Maguire's all in all. The significant data here lies in the total tackle success rate of 53% and the amount of clearances made across the 4 recorded games, which ended up being as 5 total clearances, averaging just 1 clearance per game. These areas were consistently highlighted through the individual games as clear areas of improvement due to their importance to defending, as backed up by the already mentioned research. To refer back to the dynamical systems theory once again, missing tackles or failing to clear the ball in defensive scenarios causes a perturbation, in turn providing critical chances for the opposition to score. These individual errors were also highlighted by pundits criticising Maguire at the beginning of the season, and in the beginning of the present research also. To put into context Maguire's tackle and clearance data, ex-United centre-back Rio Ferdinand averaged over 3 clearances per game and a tackle success rate of 81% in his Premier League career. That is 3 times the amount of clearances Harry Maguire made in the analysis and a 28% improvement in tackle success rate, and that's from Premier League 2020. Moving on to the intervention now. After analysing the data, the decision was made that tackle success rates was the prevalent defensive area in which Maguire needed the most improvement, as discussed and referenced previously. To clarify, this specific area is a key KPI for central defenders, says Hughes et al. 2012, Taylor et al. 2005. As such, this area of focus will be the area of focus for the intervention due to the lack of success Maguire showed upon analysing the data and its significant importance in relation to Maguire's position, which he plays. Into the planning of the intervention now. As briefly touched upon in the intro, the dynamic systems theory and ecological dynamics will underpin the intervention process. As Glazer and Robbins 2012 evidence, dynamical systems theory attempts to link behaviours to outcomes. In conjunction with this, regarding the tackle element of the intervention specifically, James 2012 discovered that perturbation success rates were the highest in teams when they attempted to dribble at the opposition. With this knowledge, it is imperative that Maguire improves his 1v1 defending in order to lessen the chance of a perturbation in favour of the opposition. As the focus was turned to 1v1 defending in an effort to improve tackle success rates, the concept of dyads in football and the complexities they provide needed addressing. The dyad in this case being Maguire the defender and obviously the opposition attacker. As Renshaw and colleagues 2019 and 2010 alluded to, these dyads must be practiced in training so that similar perception-action couplings can be experienced and carried over into competition. When planning the intervention, constraints were needed to afford behaviours and scenarios needed to improve Maguire's tackle success rate. Renshaw 2019 explains how small-sided games is a constraint that can bring about the coach's desired outcome more often and frequently, yet still be representative of competition. Additionally, Davids et al. 2013 stated that small-sided games yield more attack versus defence scenarios. This is pivotal to view Maguire's progress through the practice. Renshaw et al. 2019 also advocates the use of small-sided games in practice as a constraint. Okay, the actual intervention. As Caetano 2019 suggests, the most common dyads in football are an attacker versus defender. This practice was set up to replicate these dyads Maguire may face in matches. The practice was also set up to deliberately be mostly unstructured, allowing players to create effective solutions themselves as opposed to being mostly a coach-led session, as McKay and O'Connor 2018 advises. In addition, multiple attackers were included, as often teams change shapes in matches and Maguire may encounter separate dyads within the same game, rather than against the same player continually. This is important as different players may have different habits or ways of attacking a defender that are unique in each dyad Maguire faces. The practice will begin by a coach playing the ball into any of the attacking 4 players at different angles and speeds each time the practice is started. Linked to this, Kraus 2018 refers to functionality and how the coach feeding players from set positions continually in the same manner doesn't reflect the information movement couplings players experience in matches. Hence why the coach will relay the ball into the attackers from differing angles, positions and speeds. In terms of action fidelity, Kraus 2018 also highlights how players must experience similar movement behaviours in practice as they do in competition environments for the skills to transfer. With this information, the decision was made to put Maguire into his usual left centre-back position in a defensive back 4, in which Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has played in every Premier League game this season, Premier League 2020. Using the constraints-led approach, as emphasised by Null 1986, key task constraints were placed on the practice in order for the desired scenario of getting Maguire in 1v1 dyads. These were pitch dimensions smaller to increase chance of dyad scenario, number of plays lessened again to increase the chance of dyad scenario, and some other following rules. If the ball goes out of the play on the sides, ball re-enters field as a play as a throw-in to replicate performance environment. If the defending team retrieves and clears the ball, they get a point. This will encourage a competition element and Maguire to pursue more successful tackles. If the attacker gets a shot on target, they get a point. This encourages positive attacking play from the attackers, which they will need to show in competition environments. Whichever team gets the most points win. However, this win or loss will be irrelevant. The real data will lie in Maguire's tackle success data, which will be covertly recorded and passed to him at a suitable time. Moving into this, how the athletes receive the feedback. Taking on board Sigrid's 2012 comments and findings, the feedbacks provided to Maguire will be augmented feedback delivered extrinsically through the medium of a PowerPoint presentation, a visual format. In addition to this, to avoid proprioception, feedback will not be provided concurrently as it forces the athlete to become dependent on the feedback, as Schmidt 1991 found. Instead, the feedback will be delivered the day after through the presentation by the lead coach. Wright 2013 evidences how conversations between analysts and lead coaches before the delivery of feedback significantly aids a relationship between the analyst and coach, but more importantly helps develop their knowledge of the process and allows coaches to be significantly involved in the process, rather than if the analyst delivered the feedback or the coach delivered the feedback without consulting the analyst first. Jarzabowski 2012 brings up how athletes are more motivated after receiving feedback if there is a positive outlook and clear goals are set for the athlete to aim to. This is something which will be considered when delivering feedback to Maguire so that his motivation is maintained or even improved. To continue, feedback will be provided to Maguire in a time frame of 0 to 25 minutes, the preferred choice of time chosen by professional athletes in Wright's 2013 study. Additional elements taken from Wright 2013 that will be included in the present feedback will be to present the feedback one-to-one, as this was the most popular and effective type of feedback found in the study. Feedback will not be presented immediately after performance, as most performers suggested that this was not very useful. Instead, it will be given the day after. And the final other element it will be to combine presentation with handouts for Maguire, as this was voted very useful by the majority of athletes in Wright's study. So to end it, there's just a mini summary and some implications, and there are my reference slides. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.